Oh, ahoy! Last Christmas I talked about Call of Duty and was bad at it. This year I'm gonna save the trouble of talking about a campaign mode nobody played and just skip straight to multiplayer.
Gosh, I stink.
Great, that's done. Now it's time to sit back and soak in the holiday spirit by opening some presents.
Alright, what do we got here first? Oh hell yeah, Mortal Kombat on the SNES! Mortal Kombat is one of my favorite franchises of all time, yet I didn't spend as much time with the original as I probably should have. I don't own a Super Nintendo anymore, the one I had as a kid completely deteriorated, but I'm still happy to have this because it's a memento to my favorite franchise and to a console I hold so near and dear to my heart. Oh well, what else we got here? Oh hell yeah, a Super Nintendo! This was my OG console growing up, and while I never pegged it as one of my favorites, it still means a lot to me as a gamer. Aw, this is so sweet. I can now finally start collecting SNES titles and play those games that never made their way to the Super Nintendo Switch emulator, like Aladdin, Eat the Cat, Contra 3, Mortal
Kombat. Ignore what the Tekken fanboys say. Mortal Kombat is the most successful fighting franchise of all time, grossing over 70 million sales across the entire series. It's not only from the games, the comic books, TV shows, and movies all help make Mortal Kombat one of the highest grossing media franchises out there, raking in all the money in the world. It all started in 1991 when at Midway Studios, Ed Boon and John Tobias decided they wanted to make a side-scrolling beat-em-up starring action movie star Jean-Claude Van Damme. But for one reason or another, Jean-Claude Van Damme couldn't do it, so the duo decided to instead make a fantasy fighting game to compete with the highly popular Street Fighter. Taking inspiration from Pit Fighter, Boon and Tobias would film actors performing various moves and digitize them to create the fighter sprites, and thus giving this game a sense of photorealism. Yes, all the characters are portrayed by actors except for the sub-boss Goro, and thank God, imagine running into this guy at the grocery store. Now, to differentiate Mortal Kombat from all the other fighting games, Midway decides to add a little bit of this and a little bit of that. The blood and gore from Mortal Kombat is what made this game a phenomenon and what caused a whole lot of controversy regarding video game violence. Look at your copy of Kirby Return to Dreamland. Notice all the fun colors, but then at the bottom left there's this little skin tag. We have Mortal Kombat to thank for that. Now, not all the credit goes to Mortal Kombat for the creation of the ESRB. Video games have been getting BS for a while, with some of it being unfair and some of it being very, very fair. But then Mortal Kombat comes into the scene with photorealistic characters ripping each other's heads off, and now every game is required to have an age rating. Almost. Mortal Kombat initially released to arcades in 1991, but the next year it was announced to be coming to home consoles via the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, and the Game Gear.
The Game Gear?
The commercial for it was pretty insane, starting with some kid standing in the middle of the street shouting, "Mortal Kombat!" before showing another kid shouting, "Mortal Kombat!" And then just a bunch of rapid cuts to gameplay while people run around and mosh in the streets.
It's so 90s, it's so bad, I love it. The commercial for Mortal Kombat's home release is one of the most famous and recognizable video game commercials out there. It was a huge hit in arcades, and the fact that it was coming to consoles was a delight to gamers and terrifying to parents.
The hype was perfectly captured, cause come Mortal Monday, you can have Mortal Kombat in your house.
Oh, you meant the game.
Now, it should be noted that it didn't make a nice full transition towards consoles. Hardware at the time wasn't capable of containing the whole arcade game, so there were plenty of compromises made. The Super Nintendo version was considered the more faithful adaptation, so thanks Santa. But wait, the Christmas magic doesn't end there.
I was checking my Christmas stocking, so I was left the Game Boy version and the Super Game Boy accessory. Now that's what the holidays are all about. Packaged Christmas cookies, eggnog, and Mortal Kombat. Popping this thing right in. Oh god. It just feels so slow and so clunky. I'm pretty sure the game's ODing on Pepto-Bismol. I guess take Mortal Kombat, put up against a cheese grater, and that's what you get. Now sure, I understand how impressive it must have been for them to cram all this into the handhelds of the time, but still, maybe it's not a question of whether or not they could, maybe they should have stopped and thought whether or not they should. God, I love Jeff Goldblum. There's a reason I have a picture of him inside my fridge. Alright, enough of that. Starting up Mortal Kombat, here we have the main menu with our two options of Tournament Mode and Options. Now the story of Mortal Kombat is as follows. 500 years ago, the evil sorcerer Shang Tsung had been banished to Earthrealm, and by using the help of a Shokan named Goro, he seized control of the Mortal Kombat tournament, which is in place to give Earthrealm a chance to fend off the invasion of the evil Emperor Shao Kahn. 10 consecutive victories means Shao Kahn can merge Earthrealm with Outworld, and unfortunately for us, in the past 500 years, Goro had won 9 straight tournaments, and it is up to the new generation of warriors to compete in the tournament to prevent that fatal 10th victory. This story is given to us piece by piece via these stills that pop up during the menu, but there is also a tie-in comic book that only a fucking nerd will own. Guess who that is? So Mortal Kombat is a tournament, but it isn't like a normal tournament where there are brackets. Instead, it's more of a gauntlet where to win you have to by yourself beat everybody else and the champion last. This always felt like BS if I do say. See, Goro is a 9-time champion and all he seemingly had to do is win 1 fight against somebody who's already fought 10 fights. Let's look at the roster. We have 7 fighters here, all with their own personal reasons to be partaking in the tournament. First up is Johnny Cage, a cocky action movie star that's clearly based on Jean-Claude Van Damme! Interestingly, Johnny Cage is the only character to be left out of the Game Boy version.
Damn.
We have Kano, a mercenary of the Black Dragon, Sonya Blade, a member of the US Special Forces who pursued Kano to the island, Raiden, the God of Thunder who only in this game has his name spelled with a Y instead of an I,
Please care.
Sub-Zero, an ice-powered ninja from the Lin Kuei, his ultimate rival Scorpion, a resurrected ninja killed by Sub-Zero who was returned to Earthrealm to get his revenge, and last but not least, Liu Kang, a Shaolin monk who is pretty much the main character of the series. So we select our character and the game goes on to show the layout of the tournament and starts us at the very bottom. We go up first against the other 6 characters in simple basic one-on-ones and the last fight against yourself.
Wasn't that an old Chinese proverb that to win any battle you have to first win a battle against yourself? Was that Oprah? Sun Tzu? I don't know, look at this gingerbread house.
Gameplay is simple, you fight your opponent until you fully deplete their health bar or have it lower than yours by the time the time limit expires. Each fight is a best of 3 rounds, so we need to defeat our opponent twice and then we can advance in the tournament. Now, at its core, the controls are pretty simple. We have a D-pad to move our character around and 4 buttons for attacks. High punch, low punch, and high kick, low kick. Mortal Kombat also introduced the concept of a dedicated block button. In other games, you block by holding back on the controller, which always felt a bit counterintuitive to me. It also introduced the concept of juggling, which is hitting your opponent multiple times while they're suspended in the air. At least that's what Wikipedia said. Juggling would have more of a presence in future Mortal Kombat games, but in this one it's very rare for me to see it happen. Like, I had to scour my footage to find these 2 instances. Now, to succeed in Mortal Kombat is to know the button combinations and the special moves. Combos aren't really a thing to know in the game as there are really only 2 proper combos at our disposal, mashing the Y button and mashing the B button. But combining one of your attacks with the direction on the D-pad performs other types of attacks. Most notably, the down high punch executes an uppercut, which is a very strong hit that helps with distancing, and the back low kick that performs a leg sweep that is definitely one way to be f***ing annoying. All characters share these moves, but when it comes to special moves, every single character has their own unique thing. Here it takes a sequence of rapid button presses with the last 2 inputs being pressed at the same time to perform a special attack to dish out more punishment. Now I should mention something. These days Mortal Kombat spills its guts to us, in more than one way that is. It lays out all the special moves and combos to you, but back in the day there was no such thing. You had to figure it out. Experiment with button presses and see if your character does something cool, and if so, were you paying attention? How did I do that? Can I do it again? But these days, with the internet being what it is, we could easily just look all this up. But gotta say, going between a phone and TV screen is a bit of a hassle, so I took to writing the codes down on my hand, but I can't see when I'm holding the controller. Regardless, learning and utilizing the special moves is crucial to getting far in Mortal Kombat. When you finally win 2 rounds against your opponent, the screen flashes at us to finish him. It gives us a few seconds to perform a button combination to further humiliate our opponent with a gruesome and bloody finishing move.
Raiden. Oh right, this is the Super Nintendo version. Silly me. Remember that controversy I mentioned earlier? Well, it really came to play here when bringing the game over to the consoles. To keep it simple, Sega was eating a lot of shit for the amount of mature games that were making its way to their console, while Nintendo was sitting preaching its wholesome family values. So when Mortal Kombat was making its way towards consoles, Nintendo had its version heavily censored, removing all the blood and toning down the fatalities. Sega, on the other hand, had a cheat code you can enter to enable the blood and violence, which definitely drew fans more towards their version, because, come on, it's Mortal Kombat. If there's no this and that, is it really Mortal Kombat? Going this route definitely negatively affected sales for the Super Nintendo version, and proved to be a dumb idea from Nintendo altogether, which thankfully they didn't do again. But hey, let's give it the benefit of the doubt. It didn't remove fatalities altogether. But considering there's only 7 characters in the game and each one had 1 fatality, I'm gonna do a quick comparison from the originals to the Nintendo censored ones.
Scorpion's fatality is iconic, him removing his mask to reveal a skull and breathing fire into the opponent to burn him to a crisp. This one was not ultra at all, and neither was Sonya Blades, who'd blow you a kiss and then also burn the opponent to a crisp. Liu Kang is an interesting case. See, all he does is perform a cartwheel and an uppercut. It's definitely the weakest fatality the game had, cause it's even a question if it kills the opponent. The screen doesn't even go dark like it does with every other character. I guess maybe it's cause Liu Kang's a monk and doesn't believe in killing, so that's why he doesn't really execute the opponent. So glad they abandoned that concept. But that wouldn't make sense either because the game still calls it a fatality afterward. Ugh, my head just hurts thinking about it. So 3 fatalities out of 7 are unchanged, which is pretty good. There are 2 fatalities that fall under the good substitute category, those being Raiden and Sub-Zero. Before, Raiden shoots lightning into you, causing your head to explode. Now he shoots lightning into you and turns you to ash. It's not a bad job at all, it doesn't feel out of place. Now Sub-Zero is the special child here. His fatality of ripping off your head while the spine cord followed was stuff of legend. It's the big one that created this birthmark. Here Sub-Zero freezes you in place and shatters you. It's actually a pretty good replacement. Sure, it's replacing the most iconic kill in the franchise, but it's a lot better than what follows. Johnny Cage used to just punch your head clean off, but here he just puts his foot against you and you die. Does his foot smell bad or something? Is this supposed to be him kicking his leg through the opponent? If so, they forgot to show coming out the other side. This one just looks janky and kinda like the game glitches here. Kano had a grisly fatality. He'd reach into your chest and pull out your still beating heart. In the Super Nintendo version, he reaches into your chest and pulls out nothing. Did someone forget the red marker to work or something? What the hell is he doing?
Got your heart.
See, I appreciate the Sub-Zero finisher because that looks like they put effort to create a decent replacement. These are not it at all. But still, 2 out of 7 fatalities being lame isn't a bad percentage. So anyone dogging on the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat? Just wait a few years. Now in between every few fights, you'll have this test your might minigame where you gotta mash the buttons to build up your meter until it's past the line and press the block button to chop. It's pretty unnecessary, but it's a cute distraction, I don't mind that at all. Can't get past the stone though, I don't got that much finger strength. Something else that happens every so often is the appearance of a green ninja giving you cryptic clues on how to find them. This is who we've come to know as Reptile, making his debut as a secret boss fight that we had to unlock by fulfilling a nice list of criteria. This list included fighting on the pit stage and you had to look to the moon to see if Santa Claus flies by.
I knew it was a Christmas game.
If so, you had to proceed to get a double flawless victory without blocking and perform a fatality to earn a chance to fight him. Now, it's quite a checklist to get through, but fortunately on the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat, it eliminates the need for Santa to fly by the moon. So basically, anytime you're fighting on the pit stage, you have a chance to fight Reptile by just getting a double flawless without blocking and performing a finisher.
But it's still easier said than done. Getting through a fight without taking any damage is definitely skill-based, but it also takes plenty of luck. It stings whenever I eat the tiniest hit that ruins my flawless. So on my journey to try to fight Reptile, I decided to cheat a little bit.
The game has 6 stages, and you fight through each stage in a specific order, with the first one being the courtyard and the 6th being Goro's lair, and then it just cycles over. Now, if you lose a fight after jumping back into the tournament to try again, it skips you to the next stage. The pit is the 4th stage in Mortal Kombat, so all I had to do is once the tournament starts, let the computer beat me up till I get to my desired stage, and I can face a very easy opponent and have a high chance of getting a double flawless.
Or so I thought.
Because I think Midway foresaw this attempt, and after a while of being AFK, the computer just starts tossing you all over the place, grabbing you from wherever. I mean, look at that!
So resetting, new strategy. I'm going to look like I'm putting in effort, but losing the first stage, win the second stage, lose the third stage against the second opponent, and huzzah! We are on the pit stage, and I should have an easier opponent since I lost the last fight.
Let's do this, big opportunity. I'm gonna jump it and I was honestly ready to give up trying to fight Reptile, but then an idea popped in my head. If I lose the first round and have a flawless victory in round 2 and 3, that should technically be a double flawless. Let's give it a try. Alright, that's round 2 and round 3. Perform the iconic Scorpion finisher and it worked! Alright, so we fight the Green Ninja Reptile this exclusive 8th stage, and he basically combines the Sub-Zero and Scorpion special moves, and that's it really.
I will say I wish they kinda gave him some kinda unique moveset or something. But then again, I get not wanting to spend long man hours developing a moveset for a character that rarely is gonna be seen. So sure, I guess combine Scorpion and Sub-Zero's moves, but I don't know, maybe change the Sub-Zero Ice Blast to be green, like, I feel like that's not asking for a lot.
He's really difficult to fight and absolutely busted my ass, but it still felt great to experience. Losing to Reptile boots you back to the tournament. You had your shot and you flubbed it, that's it. But what happens if you win? Does it unlock Reptile? I always thought that this emblem here in the character select screen looked a little off, and after finding out there was a secret character, my younger self thought that was gonna be a slot. If you find them and beat them, you unlock them. But no. Beating Reptile grants you 10 million points. Now I understand that an arcade machine accumulating as many points to have your name in the leaderboards means something, and having an extra 10 million will really give you a boost. But the f*** does the 10 million points do for me here? Whenever playing Super Mario World, I always wondered what the heck the point of this point meter here is, or why do they still do it? Who cares? What makes it worse is that whenever you lose a match, all your points get sent back to 0. So hey, good job fighting Reptile and beating him, better hope no bullshit happens later and those million points disappear. And while we're on the topic of secret characters, another character technically made their debut here in Mortal Kombat as well.
Oh, sorry. I'm just feeling a little festive right now. I want to take a break from the video to read you a Christmas story. Join me here by the fire as we read The Carol of Ermac. As many games are, Mortal Kombat was always surrounded by rumors. The story of Ermac began when fans at the arcade would access the game's audits to see stats like how many times Goro was fought or Shang Tsung's beat, and even how many reptiles were found. But right underneath the reptile stats, they showed something called Ermac. The way it was grouped with Reptile made people believe that Ermac was actually another hidden character you had to find, and thus the speculations begun. This, coupled with the fact that a magazine published a photo that a fan sent in claiming to have fought a red-clad ninja, made people think that yes, this is legit. However, it was not. Midway themselves said that this was not true at all. Ermac stood for Error Macro and was used to track how many times the game would have coding errors, and the photo that the fan had sent? Doctored. But it was also reported to be a thing that on the Sega version of Mortal Kombat, if you overplayed Scorpion, the game would glitch and turn him red. Midway would go on to remove the Ermac listing on the audit menu to deter any more theories, and would continue to deny the existence of Ermac by adding the title screen, Ermac isn't real, in Mortal Kombat 2. But then, he was. In Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Ermac was created as a playable character, with his powers being a literal glitch. Isn't it funny, one of Mortal Kombat's coolest characters made their debut in the very beginning as a fuck-up. Wait a minute, this isn't a Christmas story. It's just a picture of a possum.
Now Mortal Kombat 1 is fun. Mortal Kombat is a classic. I like Mortal Kombat 1. I'm saying this now so that it's established that I think positively on my experience with Mortal Kombat before I go into this rant. The thing with reviewing old classics that people cherish is that it's a rule of thumb to always give it merit while critiquing. That was always odd to me because sure the game is great but it isn't devoid of issues. Take the original Super Mario Bros. Something that I kinda didn't like is how you couldn't move backwards because the screen locked, so in case you second guess something or want to check it out, good luck buddy, reset the whole damn thing. It's a valid thing to be irked about, but considering it's a classic of classics, when I mentioned it to someone they started leaving shit on my door.
Come on!
So keep that in mind when I say this about Mortal Kombat. The controls sometimes are really uncooperative. The game just has a hard time reading my inputs and just completely doesn't do what I ask it to do at times. And don't get me wrong, it's not because I'm misclicking. With my hand on the Bible and pointing at a picture of that lady, I just press the back button. Why the fuck is he jumping? It becomes worse when you're trying to do a sequence of buttons to form a special move or a finisher at the end of a fight and the controller must have snuck off to have a drink or something and gets boozy. You know, one time I was playing a Sub-Zero and was trying to do an ice blast, but the game couldn't read my inputs, so I kept attempting it and ended up launching 2 of them, which caused me to reverse freeze myself. And you know what? I bet this is Midway telling me to go fuck myself. The inconsistency in this game is a bit problematic at times. I understand that this is the first game in the series back in 1991, but things like certain hits not connecting when they definitely did and hits that definitely didn't connect connecting bothers me. Also, I hate how if 2 players launch projectiles at each other, whoever's hits first cancels out the other's projectile, which I feel like is BS. Having them pop into each other and cancel each other out or just have it hit both players is a detail I think isn't hard to program. I mean, if they can program that Johnny Cage's nut punch doesn't work on Sonya Blade because of, well, anatomy, then they could have given more attention to detail here. These things add to the game's grueling difficulty. You can play the game on the easiest setting, but as you win, the difficulty curve rises up like a motherfucker. I'm saying this right in time, just as I arrive to the endurance matches. So after fighting your way up through the tournament, defeating all 6 other characters and yourself, you arrive at the 3 endurance matches where you have to beat 2 fighters, and by God, it is bullshit. See, the thing with Mortal Kombat 1's difficulty curve is while the rise in difficulty is steep, the decrease after losing matches is a slow way down. It gets really apparent in these endurance matches as you have to first deplete one fighter's health bar, watch them explode, and take out the other. I hate these endurance matches. I don't get why I had to do 3 of these bouts, just one would have been fine. And I know maybe this is me complaining about dealing with annoying unfair fights, but damn it, have you played Mortal Kombat? I spent more time losing in these 3 bouts than I did any of the single matches or the boss matches. Getting through these is such a chore, and anyone who's played Mortal Kombat knows what I'm talking about. Now sure, that's the point of the word endurance, so maybe the game is accomplishing something here. My SNES controller is definitely enduring it. It also doesn't help getting through 2 fighters with the difficulty curve being what it is, considering that the game just cheats. You know when you play a fighting game and you just spam a move to win matches and you feel bad about it because you're just cheesing your way through the game rather than learning how to properly fight? With Mortal Kombat, don't. This game cheats. The computer will absolutely abuse moves on you and spam attacks. Another nitpick to throw in there, why not? Anytime you lose, you get booted back to the character select screen in case you want to change your fighter, but you're likely frustrated and tapping the button and you end up selecting Kano by accident because the select icon is always on him. Like, they can program the protection of lady parts, but they couldn't just put the damn thing on the character I was using. With the controls being clunky and stiff, you'll find yourself trying to maintain offense with a special move, but the game's not gonna read my input and the opponent will just take advantage as you do nothing. Oh, but this gets quadrupled once you get through the 3 endurance matches and reach Goro. After beating the last endurance match and taking out much frustration with a fatality, Goro just jumps from the ceiling and the fight kicks off. Holy shit! I love Goro. I think he's one of the coolest characters in the series. I mean, this is a franchise where sometimes the sub-boss is more interesting than the actual boss. And it all starts here with Goro, a giant 4-armed beast that deals a lot of damage, takes little himself, and spends the fight just ruthlessly walking towards you like a serial killer. I mean, he hits you by flexing. Goro is another instance where you have to be cheap and have to play with bullshit, because if you don't, he will. Goro gets his hands on you and Jesus Christ, good night, I can't do anything and my health bar is just gone. Trying to keep your distance is your only option, but Goro can still launch his own projectiles or just leap across the whole f***ing stage. It is absolutely stressful fighting Goro as he just doesn't stop coming towards you. What doesn't help is that he also gets invincibility frames. I mean, for fuck's sake, that just flew right past him. Now, I always hated Mortal Kombat for giving bosses invincibility frames. It's the side of fries that comes with the bullshit sandwich. But all this makes beating Goro feel like an accomplishment and that you just survived hell. Once you beat Goro, it's on to the final fight against Shang Tsung, who has the ability to transform into other characters and use their moveset against you, including fucking Goro.
Oh, come on, I just beat him and now I gotta face him again?
Shang Tsung always felt like the most least interesting final boss because he just turned into other characters, but when he turned into Goro, I hate him because apparently it's his favorite form to change to. He'll change to Goro, I'll run for my life. He changes away. Okay, good, I can attack him now. He instantly changes back to Goro and fucks me up. Okay, so the Sub-Zero reverse freeze and Shang Tsung's Goro are the biggest f*** yous Midway ever given me. Anyway, we beat Shang Tsung, the screen flashes, and we see Shang Tsung do a little dance all as the character's souls leave his body, including your own?
What?
And the screen yells, outstanding, you are the Mortal Kombat Supreme Warrior. The game ends by showing the character you just used standing in front of the respective statue as their ending scrolls past, showing what the character does with their tournament win. Johnny Cage goes on to make a Mortal Kombat movie and some very successful sequels. Sure. These endings all fall alright with their characters, except for Raiden, who we'd go to know as the protector of Earthrealm, but in this game he's the type of god that couldn't care less, so he invites other gods to compete in the tournament, which caused the destruction of the planet. Have a nice day.
Never misspell that guy's name.
So after beating the game, all you can do is beat it all over again with a new character. Now, we can get a second player involved. It's fun competing with friends, though whoever has the moves written down in their hands is definitely going to have an unfair advantage.
And that's Mortal Kombat 1, and what can I say? We know that this is a successful project that spawned a money-making juggernaut. The first Mortal Kombat isn't a game you can write off as there was nowhere to go but up. It's a really good fighting game. The characters are iconic, the special moves and fatalities are great to pull off, the soundtrack kicks ass across all versions, the game visually looks great, the character models can look a little blurry and the movement is a little rough around the edges, but it's still incredible for the time. All the stages look great, and sure the pit is the simplest looking one, but considering that this has the whole reptile thing, gives it some mystique. Plus, it's the first stage fatality in the series. No button combo, just uppercut your opponent and you'll send them flying to the bottom of the pit where you fight Reptile. It's really smart what they did. They took the least interesting one visually and made it the most exciting place to fight in. The controls may be stiff, but you know, when it works, it's great. And you know what? Maybe beating tough opponents with controls that are working against you made beating them feel more rewarding. Mortal Kombat is a big success, and sure, it may have its flaws, but it doesn't change the impact this game made on the gaming industry altogether. If there's an official Hall of Fame for video games and this isn't on the first class, then I don't know if I consider it a valid Hall of Fame. I always felt bad that I never gave this game more attention. Mortal Kombat 2 was just the Mortal Kombat I played during my SNES years, but I played it now and I'm glad I did, because I really enjoyed my time with it. My SNES controller didn't though. Alright, that's enough of that. It's Christmas Eve, and it's time to open another present. Alright, what else we got over here? Oh, hell yeah! The Doom 3 Collector's Edition for the original Xbox! I love Christmas. Because of this ever so cheerful holiday, I can now say I own this game 8 times! Oh, ahoy! I'm just digging underneath my apartment because some guy called me and told me there's some treasure buried beneath here. It was so nice of him to just call and give me such information, and all I had to do was give him my social security. What a steal! Looks like we got something. Oh, hell yeah.
So picture this, it's 1993 and you are Midway. That arcade machine that you released in 1991 that got brought to consoles a year later is making a lot of money. And you want to make some more money, so you hire the guys that made the thing that makes money to develop a sequel and make even more money. Simple! And that is how we ended up with Mortal Kombat 2. Ed Boon and John Tobias were ecstatic about turning Mortal Kombat into a franchise, and for the second installment in the series, they wanted to take everything about the original game and expand on it. More characters, more stages, more story, more secrets, and more importantly, more blood and more fatalities. Mortal Kombat 2 was released to arcades in 1993 and was a gargantuan hit, and also following in the footsteps of its predecessor, eventually made its way to home consoles the very next year in 1994.
All the consoles that got MK1 got MK2. Though Europe did get a Master System version. That's interesting, I guess. Now, with every 90s ultra-violent arcade game making its transition towards consoles, comes a great commercial.
The MK2 commercial features the actors that portrayed the fighters with rapid cuts from them fighting, standing, and random shots of lizards.
Don't forget about the lizards.
Now this is a great commercial. It also has a very 90s feel to it, and while it doesn't leave you with the same impression that the first Mortal Kombat commercial did, it still did a great job at making Mortal Tuesday just as hype as Mortal Monday.
Once again, we are checking out the Super Nintendo version because this was the Mortal Kombat of my SNES years. I remember loving and playing this game so much, and I'm super eager to play it again after all these years. But before jumping in, there is just one more interesting thing to point out.
So we remember Mortal Kombat 1 and all its controversy and hoopla that it caused with the blood and gore, so Mortal Kombat was like, okay, I'll do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again. So all the negative press was something Nintendo kinda got nervous about, so when they brought MK1 over, they heavily censored it, which led to very poor sales for that version. So Nintendo, despite having the arguably more faithful version gameplay and graphics wise to the arcade game, saw that Sega had the more popular version simply because it had the red stuff. Proving that money is a hell of a motivator to changing someone's stance on things, Nintendo turned to the dark side and allowed the blood and gore onto their platform. Though on the SNES box they did include this tag to inform people of the not so family friendly content that resides inside the box.
This is just something interesting to see because the ESRB was finally formed in September of 1994, a week after Mortal Kombat 2 came out. And if you look at the Game Boy version that came out in October, you'll see that M smack dab on the box. This is something I'm speculating about, but the fact that there was no ESRB and Nintendo was kinda nervous about having this game and all its violence on their platform, especially after seeing what happened to Sega, it's kinda cute seeing that they try to find a way to cover their tracks just in case of anything. Alright, enough dilly-dallying. It's time to finally play Mortal Kombat 2, and boy, I hope it's as good as I remember.
What a weird looking menu.
We're off to a bad start.
So, starting up, we only have two options, start and options, which is fine. Two menu options are the Mortal Kombat staples, so far so good. But this menu just looks weird to me, man. This bottom section being transparent throws me off and makes it look sloppily thrown together.
Yeah.
So the story of Mortal Kombat 2 is as follows. After Liu Kang defeated Shang Tsung in the tournament from the previous game, the sorcerer returns to his Emperor Shao Kahn in Outworld, who's ready to kill him, but Shang Tsung convinces him to instead host a winner-take-all Mortal Kombat tournament in Outworld. Shao Kahn likes the idea, and to learn the Earthrealm fighters, he sends his forces to attack Liu Kang's Shaolin Temple and massacre the monks while also kidnapping Sonya Blade and Kano. This plan ends up working as Raiden decides to gather the Earthrealm warriors to go to our world and compete in the tournament. The story is once again given to us piece by piece with these stills that pop up on the menu. But again, there are comic books made by John Tobias that help further explain and expand the story of Mortal Kombat that a nerd would own, but his bank for some reason isn't responding. Let's look at the roster. We have a total of 12 characters to choose from, which is a pretty nice amount. 5 out of the 7 playable characters reappear from the first game. Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, and Raiden with a Y all return. 2 characters that weren't playable from MK1 debut as playable characters in this game with the Secret Fire Reptile and final boss Shang Tsung joining the roster. And even though Kano and Sonya Blade aren't playable, they do still appear in the background of the Coliseum stage. So that's something. Now, moving on to the 5 new fighters, Jax is our military representation replacing Sonya. He is a special forces officer that was saved by Sonya in the last game from Shang Tsung and now is repaying the favor. Kung Lao, a fellow Shaolin monk and ally of Liu Kang seeking revenge for the attack on his temple. Baraka, a Tarkatan creature of our world who led the attack on the Shaolin temple. Kitana, a female ninja who is the daughter of Shao Kahn that allied herself with Liu Kang in Earthrealm. And Mileena, the clone of Kitana infused with Tarkatan blood that would go on to leave all the boys that play these games confused about themselves. Now, if we want to be technical, Sub-Zero is sorta a new character. In canon, the Sub-Zero from the first game was killed by Scorpion, and his younger brother assumed his role and became the new Sub-Zero. It's worth mentioning because it continues the rivalry between Sub-Zero and Scorpion. In the first game, Scorpion is after Sub-Zero to avenge himself, but in this game, Sub-Zero is after Scorpion to avenge his brother's death. Overall, the roster here is really great. Mortal Kombat 2 has 12 characters that are all incredibly distinct from one another, which is quite a feat considering that 2 of these characters are twins. So after selecting our character, we see the layout of the tournament with Shao Kahn atop of the mountain with us starting our climb at the very bottom. Like in the previous game, we must first go through all the fighters in the game before we get to the bullshit. Now, visually Mortal Kombat 2 looks great. The character models don't look as blurry as they did in the first game and actually have a crisper look to them. Everything just pops out, making for an overall pleasant visual experience. The game has 9 stages we fight in and they are leagues better. Don't get me wrong, the stages from the first Mortal Kombat all look good, but my statement is less about the graphics and more about the interesting places that we find ourselves fighting in. The game taking place in Outworld left the door open for very creative and varied environments. The trees with the creepy faces, the acid pool, the portal, the hallway with the spikes in the ceiling that for some stupid dumb reason a young me was always cautious when jumping trying to avoid it. All of these stages are phenomenal. No stages from the previous game make a proper return, but the pit did get a sequel with some more stuff going on in the background that people would speculate about for years to come.
That was something I never got behind. People saw this guy on fire in the background and went on and on and on about how that's Blaze from Armageddon. I was never part of that mindset because it could just be a guy on fire. Newsflash, not everybody who's on fire is automatically Blaze.
The core of the gameplay is all the same. We got a 2D fighter that's a best of 3 rounds where we gotta completely deplete our opponent's health bar. Mortal Kombat 2 is much faster paced than the previous game, so much so that it can give you whiplash, brace yourself. The game overall has a really nice crunchy feel to it, like when you bite a nice crispy piece of bacon. The way the screen shakes combines with the slightly overblown and distorted sound effects all combine really nicely to make this a pretty satisfying fighter that makes you feel the hits. Plus, when you perform a fatality, the way the game writes it on screen with the blood dripping is oddly satisfying. Speaking of, in Mortal Kombat 2, each character got 2 fatalities, and a few even got 3.
For this conversion of the arcade game, Nintendo brought its red marker to work, and we have all the blood splatter going on, and more importantly, we have the fatalities. And some of these fatalities are brutal. They take huge leaps in its gore compared to the previous title.
In the last game, Kano pulls out your heart, but it's just a red pixel and the sound effect is what sells it. In this game, Jesus Christ, look at that! The game does have plenty of brutal fatalities, but there are also some a bit on the silly side, like how Mileena will suck you up and then just regurgitate a bunch of bones.
Oh.
Or how Johnny Cage punches your head off not once, not twice, but 3 times. There are a few misses here. Liu Kang kept a cartwheel uppercut, but this time the screen goes dark at least. Also, Jax just rips off your arms, which sure seems brutal, but it doesn't look like it kills the opponent considering he just continues to stand there.
Gosh, I must sound like a fucking lunatic. I'm being too pessimistic here. Rather than focusing on the few misses that you can only really count them on one hand, let's focus on the glorious fatalities that this game does bring.
Like how Reptile pulls off his mask to show his reptile-ness and eats your goddamn head. Mileena gives us an old prison shankin', Jax straight up claps our head gone, and while Liu Kang has the lamest fatality in the game, his other does feature him turning into a fucking dragon and munching on the opponent, so that makes up for it. Oh, and we also have plenty of beheadings to satisfy French revolutionists. Mortal Kombat 2 is also where Mortal Kombat begins to show more of its fun side, which seems pretty twisted to say. Midway introduced new types of finishers to perform at the end of each match, those being babalities and friendships. Babalities simply just turn your opponent into a baby. Now, I never cared for these because it just turns them into a motionless sprite. At least in MK9, the babalities showed them doing something funny like Sub-Zero pissing himself, but the piss freezes over and he slips and oh, that stupid baby. Here though, it's not too exciting, but that's because I'm looking at it in the wrong context. Just picture the scene in 1993. Imagine two dudes playing Mortal Kombat 2. One of them loses because of some bullshit, because it's Mortal Kombat, it's gonna be bullshit. And he starts rage quitting and getting all pissy, and the cheeky bastard they were playing performs a babality. It must have been gold. Babalities are probably hysterical in multiplayer, but not too interesting in single player. Friendships have your character do something silly like Liu Kang dancing, Baraka giving you a present, Johnny Cage giving you an autograph, and the ninja characters all engaging in capitalism. All of these were introduced to kind of poke fun at parents and politicians who constantly dogged on the game for its violence. What do you mean this game is grotesque? It's Kid Thunder, damn it! Stage fatalities are also more present here, with the game now having 3 of these. You can dump your opponent in acid, send them to the bottom of the pit where a funny looking cutscene plays, or uppercut them into the spikes on the ceiling.
I knew it!
This time though, to perform these, we do need to perform a proper button combo to do them, which sure is how the series is today, but I don't know, it's nice to be able to just do an uppercut. Now diving into gameplay, the 2 biggest issues I had with the previous title was the controls and the difficulty. Let's start with the controls. Now once again, to succeed in Mortal Kombat is knowing the special moves and how to execute them. And with all the new characters and an overall increased moveset leads to many more button combos to try to memorize. Shang Tsung's moveset is especially nuts. Not only does he have 3 separate attacks of numerous fireballs to launch, but he can also transform into any of the playable characters and use their moves, but to do that, each character transformation has their own button combo, and that's just insane! I'm running out of room to write all this stuff. In the last game, I talked about how the controls felt stiff and it made things more difficult than it had to be when it came to trying to perform attacks or special moves. So what's the situation here? Now, Mortal Kombat 2 controls very well, but you see, we do still have that stiff problem here, where sometimes it feels like the input I put into my controller decides to stumble its way up the wire while fighting off bees. And, well, let's hope it gets there in one piece. It's made even more apparent here because of the game's overall increase in speed, so you're trying to really quickly knock these moves out, but nothing happens and you end up just standing there while the computer approaches you and takes advantage. I will say the first couple times playing Mortal Kombat 2 definitely felt a bit frustrating, especially with how the difficulty is, and oh, we'll get to that. Now, I gotta say, a lot of these Mortal Kombat 2 special moves and finishers are not easy to perform at all. For starters, some attacks like Liu Kang's bicycle kick don't need a button combo but instead require you to hold the button and release after 3 seconds. Which is asking a lot considering that I'd be lucky to even have such time given to me. And you know what bothers me? Why does the computer get to start the match with a bicycle kick? Where was the 3 seconds? What's even more wild is certain finishers also require this hold the button concept. Like both of Rain's fatalities require you to just hold the button for 6 and 8 seconds, which sounds easy, but there's not even 8 seconds in the finish him screen. Shang Tsung's third fatality is even more wild because that requires 25 seconds, with the internet telling me that I need to start in the final round. Like what does that mean? Does it mean I have to fight while holding down the button and make sure I win the round perfectly within 25 seconds? Now let's take the Jax fatality where we must be real close, hold low punch while performing D-pad motions, but if I press the low punch button while close, it will hit the opponent and not let me perform the finisher in the first place. Sub-Zero's first fatality requires 2 separate button combos. The first to freeze your opponent, but this isn't the same freeze attack you use in the game. No, this is a whole new separate button combo, and then you need to perform a separate combo to do the actual killing blow. This is just asking for way too much, man. Overall, performing all the finishers and special moves, no matter how simple they look, is actually pretty difficult here in Mortal Kombat 2, which makes things worse when we discuss the difficulty. So in Mortal Kombat 1, the difficulty rose sharply through each match, but as you lose, it slowly decreases. The first 2 fights in Mortal Kombat 1 are against ragdolls, and it's during the 3rd fight it really becomes a challenge. In Mortal Kombat 2, the first match actually has some bite to it, and I actually really like that. As you work your way up the tournament, the difficulty rise is actually a smooth way up. You'll notice the computer is harder, but it's not going to straight up smack you in the face. But you see, once you get to the 9th or 10th fight, holy shit, what's happening? It's from this point the computer starts getting extremely grab happy, and those special moves that you're going to work so hard to pull off are going to be blocked or dodged 90% of the fucking time.
Did I mention you have limited continues too?
Oh yeah, in the last game you had unlimited retries, but in this game you only have 5, and once you lose 5 times, that's it. Game over. There are no endurance matches here, thank fucking God. Now what makes the difficulty in this game better than the last game is that in the first Mortal Kombat, the computer, and I'm saying this without radiating a single ounce of shame from my body, cheats. It spams attacks and cheeses you. Here, the CPU actually fights with honor and didn't just do the same thing over and over again. It was definitely a less irritating way to lose. And hey, this game actually fixed an issue I had in the last game. In this game, dual projectiles will hit both opponents. Thanks Midway. So after defeating the 11th fighter, we go up against Shang Tsung, and yes, this is more of the same fight in the last game, but no bullshit Goro transformations. Shang Tsung is very difficult to beat, but once you do, it's onto the game's sub-boss, Kintaro, a product of Goro, f***ing a tiger. Kintaro is an underrated boss character in the series, and I don't get why, cause this dude is scary and completely awful to fight. It is more of the same thing from the last game, who deals so much damage it's unfair, takes so little damage it's bullshit, and ruthlessly charges you and it's goddamn terrifying. What gets you through Goro is spamming projectiles and keeping your distance. See, fighting Goro was hard, but it seemed like you can put up a fight at least. Here, I'm f***ing crying, I can't do anything. Kintaro blocks all your attacks, and keeping your distance isn't an option because he can close the gap real quick, launch his own projectiles quickly and rapidly, and the whole thing where he jumps up and lands on you for about 5 minutes. Just beating Kintaro in one round is an impossible task, and the game expects me to beat him in 2? And goddamn, apparently the battle used to be even more difficult in the arcades before Midway upgraded the game to not be so hard.
How the f did anyone do this? I absolutely believe Midway went a bit overboard with this game's difficulty. And sure, it does mean that when you finally beat the bosses, it feels f***ing amazing. But with the amount of pain and hurt that'll come beforehand, especially that we have limited continues that's gonna make things even more difficult, makes it not worth it.
I really started to wonder how the hell was I able to beat this guy when I was a kid, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I cheated!
Yeah, I'm a bitch.
Mortal Kombat 2 has cheats that you can activate by being on the character select screen and rapidly entering a sequence with the D-pad before pressing the select button, and once you hear a gong, it means you did it. These cheats include things like giving yourself 30 continues, skipping to Kintaro or Shao Kahn, extending the fatality time, and giving you super strength and durability.
Now, it is something that Sun Tzu once said that cheating to win doesn't feel as satisfying. And sure, relentlessly beating on Kintaro didn't give me that satisfaction of actually winning the match, but it did at the very least feel a bit therapeutic.
But yeah, to the everyday schlub like me, using the 30 continue cheat was essential because some of these fights really are ridiculous. Now when you're climbing the ranks, at some point you'll notice this question mark that we just skip over. Well, that's the secret characters for you. So the secret reptile fight from the first Mortal Kombat was a huge hit in arcades, so Mortal Kombat 2 wanted to do more of that and now brought us 3 secret characters to try to find and unlock. These were Jade, Smoke, and Noob Saibot. Now once in a while before a fight in MK1, Reptile would jump out and drop hints on how to find them. And even without an internet search, after a couple of tournament playthroughs you should have gathered enough clues to have an idea of what to do to find them. Here though, I've only seen it happen once in 12 tournament playthroughs, meaning you absolutely need to look it up to find them. Now, on the forest stage you will sometimes see them pop their heads out, but this is more of a fun tease rather than actually helping you. Once you figure out how to find them, the screen will flash at you to get ready and then prepares you to face an undiscovered warrior from MK1 and sends you back to Goro's lair. Which, honestly, did feel pretty cool. Like the reptile fight, these secret fights are very difficult. These guys move super fast. Each of the secret characters has their own criteria to fulfill on how to find them. The green female ninja Jade is the easiest of the 3. All you have to do is in the fight that takes place right before the question mark is to win a single round by only using low kicks. The male Grey Ninja Smoke is on paper easy to find. All you have to do is be on the portal stage and at the moment the toasty pops up, you must press down and start on the controller to initiate the fight. See, it's easier said than done because I'd go whole matches uppercutting opponents on the stage and it seems like Dan took a vacation or something because it doesn't pop up. The last secret fighter is the Black Ninja Noob Saibot, another one of Mortal Kombat's coolest characters made in the simplest way. Take the Sub-Zero model and completely turn up the darkness, and when it came to naming him, the two head honchos took their last names and went, is it worth it? Can I work it? I'll put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it. To unlock Noob, you had to win 50 straight matches.
Definitely a difficult task that I heard stories online of how people would plug in a second controller and spend hours beating on the dummy until they hit that jaded number. But damn it, I don't have time for that these days, so thank God there are also cheats you can use to get to the secret fighters.
Thank God I wrote all these down. At the same time though, fighting the secret fighters in this game didn't feel as special as it was fighting Reptile. And it's not because I cheated. I organically unlocked the Jade fight and it was a lot easier than I thought and I did it on my first attempt. And Smoke is pretty RNG based. Sure, Noob isn't easy to unlock, but the fact that it's grinding for hours just to get decimated by him in a minute makes putting in that effort undesirable. Reptile felt like something you unlocked. All the mounted criteria made finding him feel like an accomplishment. You don't unlock the characters by beating them, which I expected at this point. You don't get the 10 million points, which I'll be honest, it doesn't matter here. Regardless of win or lose, you'll get booted back to the tournament. So we finally arrive at the top of the mountain after getting through the bullshit, and the bullshit. We arrive at the final battle against the Emperor of Outworld, Shao Kahn, who starts off the match by taunting you before he unleashes the hurt upon you. Shao Kahn is the ultimate baddie of the Mortal Kombat franchise, and he makes his debut here in the sequel like he's Jason Voorhees. Everything we know about Shao Kahn battles is here from the very beginning with the powerful quick attacks, insane durability, and the persistent taunting throughout. Yes, not only does he beat us mercilessly, but he also demoralizes us.
Is that your best?
Imagine being a kid coming home from getting bullied at school and trying to do the one thing that makes you happy only to have to deal with even more physical and verbal abuse? That must have sucked. Shao Kahn was a huge upgrade over Shang Tsung in the previous game. In the last game, the final boss was slightly underwhelming since he just turned into other characters. Here, Shao Kahn is his own man and he is completely terrifying. He isn't as difficult as Kentaro, though I am making that assessment based on the fact that I was able to beat Shao Kahn without cheating. I was spamming, but I wasn't cheating. After beating Shao Kahn, he starts weirdly saying no.
No.
Before teleporting across all the different stages using what I'm sure is the DK Country Barrel Blast launch sound effect. And then we pop up back at the Coliseum where he turns to stone and shatters. Sadly not as cool as the arcade version was. The screen tells us that Shao Kahn's rule is over and that we once again are the Supreme Mortal Kombat Champion. The game goes on to show us our character's ending, showing us what would they do with their tournament win with the tiniest accompanying picture possible. Again, a bunch of non-canon endings for each character. Johnny Cage makes a sequel Mortal Kombat movie that's so successful, that a third Mortal Kombat is inevitable. Well, now that's just funny. All these endings seem right by the characters, and even Raiden this time, who is now the protected that we'd all know him to be, and not using his ending to destroy the earth before wishing us a nice day. That'd be Shang Tsung. We are then shown the cast of characters, which is always something that I love games do, before being shown the credits and we're back at the menu, where now we can just play the game all over again.
Now, there was one more super secret within this game. Legend says if you beat a human opponent 250 times in a row, you unlock a single game of Pong.
Yep, a single game of fucking Pong that uses Mortal Kombat sound effects.
I hope your whole day was worth that.
Multiplayer. Same thing.
And that is Mortal Kombat 2. Was it as good as I remember? Yeah, but it didn't feel that way at first. The issue of the difficulty in the controls definitely made me feel a bit disappointed at first. But after a while, I felt like I was catching up to speed and found myself enjoying it again like I used to before. And I started playing better. Can you believe it? I played a game enough and I got good at it. Who knew? And I actually managed to beat Kentaro in a single round. I didn't win the match, but we're making progress. With Mortal Kombat 2, Tobias and Boone wanted to expand the greatness of the first Mortal Kombat, and they sure did.
The game took leaps in its gameplay, graphics, characters, story, blood, and gore. Mortal Kombat 2 is also where the series really formed its identity. Yes, Mortal Kombat is all about the violence and pissing off parents, but it's also about having fun and not taking things too seriously. Being a game that's over the top and does silly things like friendships, fatalities, and the whole toasty thing is also just as much Mortal Kombat as fatalities are. Performance-wise, this game absolutely killed it, pun intended. Mortal Kombat 2 was an enormous commercial success, establishing Mortal Kombat as an ultra-successful fighting franchise, which definitely made Midway happy.
Like the previous title, this has been considered one of the greatest video games of all time, and some even say that it even topped the original. And I'd agree. Mortal Kombat 2 was considered the peak of the Mortal Kombat games for about 17 years until Mortal Kombat 9 came out, with people even to this day arguing that this is the best in the series. Personally, I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's definitely top 3. Mortal Kombat 2 is great, and if you were going to revisit one of the 3 games from the original SNES years, I do heavily recommend it being Mortal Kombat 2. And Mortal Kombat 1 is not a bad option either. Mortal Kombat 3? We'll get to.
I do wish I was able to read the comic books though. I want to read a more in-depth explanation of what the story of this game is. Oh, we're getting a call. Hello?
Hi, we heard you're looking for Mortal Kombat 2 comic books.
Boy, am I.
Great! We happen to have some extra that we're willing to give you in exchange for one of your kidneys.
What a day for deals! Ahoy! Don't mind me, I'm just getting ready for a date. I'm trying the whole online dating thing, and my first match is looking like a winner. Look at that. I'm one lucky guy, and it's a good thing back in college I minored in manners. Oh, can't wait to meet her. You have personality.
So if you wanted a year where Mortal Kombat was so prevalent in the mainstream media that it was almost intoxicating, 1995 is that year for you. Because it was this year Mortal Kombat really started to be everywhere. Comic books, novels, animations, card games, action figures, shirts, even a fucking live show that toured across the US that year. 1995 was also the year the Mortal Kombat movie came out, which at first was awesome, but then years later people started looking back at it a bit more critically, but now it's looked back with love again. Yes, all this Mortal Kombat content has led to many to dub 1995 as the year of Mortal Kombat, with the headliner being 2 new Mortal Kombat games hitting the market. Now with the development of the third Mortal Kombat, there was a lot of behind the scenes drama.
Ooh, spill the tea.
Some of the actors of the characters were having disputes over their royalties, and lawsuits were even thrown around as the actor for Johnny Cage would go on to promote another fighting game dressed as Johnny Cage. And the actor who portrayed Kano would appear in other Mortal Kombat style ripoff titles.
Oh, good heavens.
This led to a lot of new faces portraying the characters, and not gonna lie, I don't see what the actors were thinking. Because when you become so digitized that it's hard to tell it's you, do you really think you are hard to replace? Oh well, anyway, Mortal Kombat 3 was released to arcades in spring of 1995 with a bigger budget with the intent to be the biggest Mortal Kombat game up until this point.
And well, it's mixed really. While Mortal Kombat 3 was delivering on crispy quality graphics and top-notch sound design, it still had a lot missing, which made the game feel incomplete. Personally, I was never a fan of Mortal Kombat 3. I bought it back in the day, played it for about 2 hours, didn't like it, and never touched it again. We are still looking at the Super Nintendo version because, well, it's what I have. But at this point in time, the Mortal Kombat games are starting to get too big for the cartridges, so we're about to see some notable content being left out. MK3 was released on Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and PlayStation, with the head honchos Ed Boon and John Tobias calling the PlayStation version near identical to the arcade version. No surprise there. Also, we aren't just looking at Mortal Kombat 3 today, but we're also looking at the 2 updated versions that came out after, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Meaning this video's probably gonna be a long one. Hey editor me from the future, how you doing over there? I hope my efforts are appreciated.
So the story of Mortal Kombat 3 is that after Liu Kang defeated Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat 2 to secure Earthrealm safety, Shao Kahn proved to be a bit of a sore loser, so using some loopholes via marriage,
This is why you get prenups.
Shao Kahn starts to invade Earthrealm, and it is up to our heroes to once again put a stop to him. So starting up, we have the logo flashed at us, and then we are taken to our menu with 2 choices of fight and options. So far, so Mortal Kombat. The layout's a bit empty though, this game could have definitely used some cool stuff here. First things first, let's look at the roster. We have 14-ish playable characters, and okay, reason number 1 why Soblev isn't crazy about Mortal Kombat 3, the roster is very underwhelming. When we look back at the Mortal Kombat 2 roster, it was amazing. So many cool and iconic characters, and if you asked me to take one of them out of the game, I couldn't do it. Here, God, I can name 5 that if they weren't here, I wouldn't complain.
Now I know what I'm saying might be a bit blasphemous because this game is the debut of a whole bunch of iconic characters. And sure, I'll agree. But this is about who isn't here.
So from the last game, out of the 12 iconic playable characters, only 5 returned in this game. Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Shang Tsung, Jax with cybernetic enhancements to his arms, and Sub-Zero, who for some reason decided he left his mask at home and went from being a cool mysterious ninja to a guy that looks like he works as a barista at Starbucks. Sonya Blade and Kano return as playable characters, which is nice, but the fact that the game omits characters like Raiden, Kitana, Reptile, Johnny Cage, and motherfucking fucking Scorpion is abysmal. Yeah, face of the franchise, let's not put him in the game. Imagine Mario not being in Mario Galaxy and instead you play as Birdo. So Midway made some massive cuts, which led to 7 new characters debuting. First up, we have Nightwolf, a Native American shaman that has a moveset that you expect. Cabal, a speedy warrior with hook swords who's a member of the Black Dragon who was brutally injured in the invasion and now requires a ventilator to survive that makes it look like he's got googly eyes. Sindel, the resurrected wife of Shao Kahn and Kitana's mother, she has a knack for flying and yelling,
Just like Mom.
and has one of the most confusing storylines the series has ever seen.
Just like Mom!
She starts off as the Queen of Edenia before Shao Kahn merged the realms and was forced to marry him against her will, but died when she tried to prevent Shao Kahn from doing to other realms what he had done to Edenia. So he had her resurrected and bewitched so that he can invade Earthrealm and have her on his side. But then in later games it's revealed that she was never bewitched at all. So was she good or bad all along?
If she was truly on Shao Kahn's side the whole time, why would she stop him from trying to invade Earthrealm? And why would she need to be bewitched upon her resurrection? What's her alliance? I don't know, and I don't think Midway does either. But this almost schizophrenic storytelling makes me not give a shit about her.
Anyway, rest of the roster, Shiva, a member of the Shokan race, the same species that spent the last 2 games harassing us as sub-bosses, but now that we get to play as one, she isn't as broken. How convenient. She's the only character here that wasn't portrayed by anybody, instead was made using stop motion. Thank God, imagine seeing this at the bank. Stryker, a New York City cop that for some reason survived the invasion and takes the fight to Shao Kahn using batons, guns, and grenades. He also for some reason looks like Will Ferrell. And the last 3 of the new characters are the 3 cyborg ninjas, Cyrax, Sector, and Smoke. So the story with these guys is Sub-Zero's clan, the Lin Kuei, are turning their members into cyborgs. Sector was a willing participant, Cyrax and Smoke are not, and they are all hunting down Sub-Zero to turn him into one. The Cyber Initiative is one of my favorite side stories in Mortal Kombat. The little civil war within the clan on whether or not giving up your free will is worth being cybernetically enhanced. I don't know if anybody remembers that YouTube series Mortal Kombat Legacy. That was pretty sweet, and the episode on Cyrax and Sector did an awesome job showing the horrifying transformation. Anyway, Smoke appeared in the previous game as a hidden boss fighter as a human, but in this game he's a cyborg that kinda sits in the middle and flashes at you peekaboo style, but you can't get your cursor on him. He's a unlockable fighter, but I'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, this is the roster, and yes, it is filled with classic Mortal Kombat characters, but honestly, they're all side characters. A lot of these characters aren't characters that had they been omitted in future games, no one would care, and you're lying if you say you do. Imagine a Sonic game where it's all Cream, Vector, and Big the Cat. Cool to see him, but where the fuck are Tails, Shadow, and Knuckles? So we select our character, and then we get to select our tower length, which is a first for the series. The game does still pull a fast one because you'll select this tower that makes you think it's only 6 fights, but then as it pans out, it'll reveal like 2 more.
You just love misleading me, huh?
So we start off with our first fight, and on to reason number 2 why Soblev doesn't like Mortal Kombat 3. The stages suck. They are also drab and boring. It's all just streets that are colored blend of gray and brown. Think back to Mortal Kombat 2, every stage was awesome, mythical, and vibrant with color. You can make a pride flag out of them. And then here in Mortal Kombat 3, it's one city street, then another city street, then a subway, inside a building, roof of the same building, oh, and a brick hallway. It makes sense in story as Shao Kahn is invading Earthrealm, so it makes sense having some very urban settings. But it doesn't change the fact that it's all dull and pretty generic. There are 3 good stages I like, which include the portal, the Gothic church that has so much color, and this wooden building that reminds me of that Super Mario Kart Ghost track. But you see, Mortal Kombat 3 sucks so bad with rotating its stages that it sometimes seems to forget about the wooden building and church stages despite those being the best ones. Instead, it rotates these 5 similar looking stages, and Mortal Kombat 3 gets really boring to look at really quick. One new thing MK3 adds is the ability to transition stages. If you uppercut your opponent, you'll send him to the ceiling and you'll find yourself in the next stage. It's kinda cool at first, but it also means you go through the small rotation even faster, and you'll really be seeing the same stages again.
Now, is this a reason to hate Mortal Kombat 3? Yes, actually.
For one, the game has 3 transitions, and 2 of them take you to a much worse stage. The portal is one of the few stages I like in the game, but an uppercut takes me to a brick wall. The subway also is a transitional stage that'll take you to one of the 2 street stages, which is also lame, but the subway hurts more cause that has a stage fatality. I'm a New Yorker, this is a realistic horror scenario, which is why I love reenacting it in video games. And the fact that any uppercut will take it away from me blows. If it was a crunchy uppercut that also summoned Dan the Toasty Man, that would have been a little bit better.
Now let's talk about the gameplay and any changes that were made.
We have the same old controls and special moves that we have to learn to use. My doctor asked that I stop writing Mortal Kombat codes on my body, so he gave me a notepad to write all these down. Why didn't I think of that? Shang Tsung again has the ability to turn into any character with a character-specific button combination, but this has also made it that sometimes when you're playing as him, you just randomly turn to somebody and it's like, what are their moves again?
Previously, Mortal Kombat had a bit of a fighting philosophy of the best offense is the best defense. If you just jump wildly at your opponent, it was not gonna go well if they were blocking. Blocking is the true secret of being good at Mortal Kombat. But for the third Mortal Kombat, Midway wanted to change things up a bit and have gameplay that encouraged more push-forward heavy offense.
Combos became way more prevalent here than any other game up to this point, as on screen it starts to flash our combo and damage percentage. With MK3 they added a dedicated run button where you sprint towards your opponent to quickly close any gap and to start a brutal combo. This is our stamina meter, by the way. On the SNES controller that button is R, and it took me a few years to learn that because I'm so used to both these buttons being block. There were a lot of instances where I wanted to protect myself from danger, but then I ended up running at it. I'm not a fan of sprint combos in MK3. Small reason is that anytime I try running at my opponent, the SNES controller misreads my input as a jump and now I'm thrown off, I'm disoriented from what I want to do to what ended up happening, and I'm getting punished for it. But even if your SNES does obey you, it's not just run at the opponent and start f***ing up your controller. No, there are specific sequences which make sense, but god damn it, I can't find them online when I look them up. At this point, it feels like you just have to guess, and when I do manage a combo that lasts longer than 3 hits, it's like, yeah, how did I do that? Can I do it again? But my big reason for disliking the combo system is that it comes from the fact that I can't do it, and the computer will meanwhile knock out an 8-hit combo that takes half my f***ing health. Yeah, make that reason 4.
You know, since I'm talking about the CPU, I might as well talk about the difficulty of the game.
The difficulty in Mortal Kombat games has been something I've documented with graphs, and Mortal Kombat 3's graph is basically a heart rate monitor. Because this game isn't just hard. It's not just f***ing hard. It's f***ing relentless, dude. I'm starting to think the difficulty selection in Mortal Kombat games is just a f***ing placebo because this game is so unfair and so grueling in its difficulty, it's like a lion murdering a zebra that slept with his wife. Even at its low points, the opponents are still a handful, but hey, it feels good to beat them if you can, but then the immediate next fight they are so aggressive and so malicious, it feels like they are on a mission to double flawless me. The combos they unleash upon you, good god, the combos, they last what feels like days. Like, relax, it's not that serious. Sometimes Jack just grabs me and I feel like I have time to run to the store and get a coffee by the time he finishes with me. But then there are times where after losing a bunch, the computer just stands there like it's about to let me dish out attacks, which at first made me ready to talk about how that's not a satisfying way to win, but nah, they tricked me. They start f***ing me up even more.
Mortal Kombat 3's difficulty was always insane, which is why I was never able to beat it back in the day, and what kinda caused me to roll my eyes anytime I think about it. But fortunately, this channel has no shame.
God bless the 90s and all the cheats they gave us. At the main menu, you can enter any of these 3 secret codes to access cheats. We got cool stuff, cooler stuff, and Scott stuff.
I'm more of a stash guy.
All of these take you to different menus where you can activate different cheats to try to make the game better. Stuff like double damage, disabling blocks and sweeps, extra time for fatalities, 30 continues, it's all here. Hilariously, the ability to pause is a cheat. That's kinda silly. We can also play a mini game, which is just a fun game of Galaga using Mortal Kombat sound effects. We can also enable smoke,
Toxic.
which is how you unlock smoke so you can play as him.
That's why I say unlock, because you don't unlock him by accomplishing something in the game and boom, he's yours forever. The only way to play as Smoke is to use these cheats, which brought something else to my attention. There are no secret fighters.
Which isn't really a make or break when it comes to Mortal Kombat, but come on, finding Reptile in the original game was such a cool experience, and fighting the secret fighters in MK2 was also pretty neat. Now, I should mention, in the original arcade game, there were 2 secret fighters, one being Smoke, who made it onto the game as an unlockable fighter, and the other was Noob Saibot again.
But Noob, to my knowledge and what I looked up online, is nowhere near here. Which is kinda lame that MK3 couldn't just add him. I wouldn't have thought it would take too much space to add a character that's just a blacked out version of another model using somebody else's movesets. But anyway, with all these cheats in hand, you can try to make the game your own experience. Give yourself a fighting chance. The 2 cheats I often frequented were the 1-button fatalities and disabling blocks.
Disabling blocks made the game a whole lot more competitive, without the CPU stopping any of my fun. Now this does mean the game can become Cheese Fest 1995, but honestly, to really drive home how unfair the game is, the computer sometimes actually still managed to put up a fight and still bust my ass.
I'm supposed to beat these guys without cheats?
The other cheat I always use is the quick finish, which means when you get the finish him screen, press just any one of these buttons and boom. Though the game does bug out a bit sometimes. But honestly, this ease of finisher spoiled me. I don't know how to perform a single finisher in MK3 and I'm okay with it. Let's talk about the actual finishers, and Mortal Kombat 3 has a whole bunch of different types of ways to end matches, which sounds great, but this is actually a matter of quality versus quantity. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they are all bad, but they are definitely lacking in polish. We have 3 stage fatalities in the game and they are all solid, but as I said earlier, it's outside circumstances that mess with those. Either we are an uppercut away from not being able to do it, or the game just won't take you to a stage where you can do it. Babalities and friendships return from the last game. Babalities are the same, opponent turned into a motionless sprite, and it's perfect if your opponent is ever rage quitting. Friendships are the same concept, but everybody has a new and unique friendship, and I love these. Striker becoming crossing guard and all the MK3 cats run by. Kung Lao throws his hat to a dog, but his hat is a death hat, so it hurts the dog. Sonya Blade swings her arms, but I'm not sure if that's supposed to be her touching her elbows together.
Fucking perverts.
The new finisher on the block is called the Animality, where our fighter channels their inner spirit animal to kill their opponent. Some of these spirit animal choices make sense, like Liu Kang being a dragon, Shang Tsung being a snake, Sub-Zero being a polar bear, and Nightwolf being a wolf. But other decisions are pretty bizarre. Now this is cheating because this isn't an MK3 but in a later game, but I also don't want to keep talking about animalities later, so I'm just gonna get it out of the way now. Reptile turns into a fucking monkey that's so fucking stupid. Scorpion! 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 Turns into a penguin. The animality in theory is a cool idea, but this is where the quantity-quality argument is brought up because they are so lacking in execution. Pun intended. Some of these are just the same reused animation, or some of them are just clunky looking and off-center, like he barely bites them. I will admit though that the Cyrax shark animality was pretty sweet and very clever, but it also might be because I'm biased and love sharks.
There used to be a shark poster there.
Now how about the regular fatalities? While they aren't as clunky as the animalities, the fatalities do still at times lack polish. There are some good ones like Sector pulling out a giant compressor, Liu Kang dropping the Mortal Kombat 2 arcade machine on you, or Shiva ripping the flesh off your bones. Some silly ones like Cabal inflating your head and Kano pulling out your whole skeleton are here. But to give an idea of what my issue is, it's how when Kung Lao cuts your body into pieces but they fly off in such a clumsy looking way. Like look, his arms are just floating, it looks cheap. And I get that extra animation might be too much for the SNES, but you know what? Sometimes less is more. In previous games, a simple decapitation was great because of how the rest of the body reacts. The way it crumbles to the floor adds a lot. Here, it looks unfinished for a finisher. Add that to the list, I guess. Underwhelming finishers.
Alright, with cheats in hand, it's time to finally beat Mortal Kombat 3. The disabling blocks and 30 credits really helped me get through the tower.
Though another thing I noticed while playing the game is how, like with rotating stages, the game really sucks with rotating tournaments. It seems like I have fought Sonya Blade, Jax, Nightwolf, Kung Lao, Kano, and Cabal significantly more than any of the other 8 fighters in the game, which really adds to repetitiveness I feel with Mortal Kombat 3. Anyway, we reached the sub-boss of the game, Motaro, who's a centaur in MK lore. The centaurs and Shao Kahn despise each other, which makes me wonder if Shao Kahn employs both of them for kicks. Motaro is a big boy with a laser firing tail, the ability to teleport, a ridiculously janky hitbox, the wonkiest grab mechanic, and he deflects any and all projectiles. See, with all that information, you'd think Midway really outdid themselves with the sheer fucking nonsense of the sub-boss. But no! Despite on paper being a nightmare, Motaro is actually a pretty beatable boss, without cheats even. Considering he deflects projectiles, the classic strategy won't work against them. But the MK3 aggressive gameplay philosophy actually works here. Just charging at him with jumping high kicks is a very effective method. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't always work, but my success rate against Motaro is very good. Honestly, there's not too much bullshit in this fight. It's actually been all reserved for Shao Kahn because Jesus fucking Christ! See, Shao Kahn was a menace in the last game. In this game, he's even more of a nightmare. With even more attacks added and the relentless attitude that Mortal Kombat 3 has, Shao Kahn is almost impossible to beat. Also, whoever at Midway decided to give Shao Kahn the hammer attack that also stuns us is a fucking monster. I hope you have a terrible Christmas. Yeah, with Shao Kahn I needed cheats to beat him and the purest to spam me because I could not beat him any other way. But even with that, I never felt satisfied with beating MK3.
So, I guess nothing was really accomplished.
Anyway, Shao Kahn blows up, we are the champion, and we get our character-specific ending, the end, roll credits.
I feel like I should mention multiplayer, even though I don't have the drive to find anyone to play Mortal Kombat with.
MK3 introduces combat codes that can be used to change things up.
Alright, that's multiplayer. And that is Mortal Kombat 3. And if it sounds like I ragged on the game a bit and hated it, that's because I did.
The roster is bland, the stages are boring, the finishers are unpolished, the gameplay is unfair, and beating it didn't feel good because I cheated. There's just nothing about Mortal Kombat 3 that I liked. I played it just to play through it, not because I liked what I was doing.
I can appreciate what it brought to the series, like a bunch of cool characters and some story arcs like the Cyber Initiative.
The music has this Western electronic feel which matches the setting. I liked it, I know some people didn't. The whole game just felt incomplete from every aspect.
Which is something a lot of people thought. Mortal Kombat 3 was always going to have a hard time following up Mortal Kombat 2, but it still managed to disappoint even more. Now still, it was a commercial success. I mean, it's Mortal Kombat, of course it was. But everyone knew it was missing something. Missing a lot, actually.
And Midway knew it too, which is why a few months after MK3's release, we got Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. So the second game we got in 1995 was actually just an updated version of the first game. Midway saw the problems the game had and fixed them by improving the roster, the stages, and even the gameplay. This time in the fall of 1995.
Like always, it made its way to home consoles via Super Nintendo, Genesis, and Sega Saturn. Oddly not PlayStation. But like MK3, UMK3's best version was definitely the CD version of the 5th generation. So once again, we are stuck playing the duped 4th gen version. Now I never played Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on the SNES, but I do still have plenty of experience via online ROMs, emulation, and the iOS version that was available back when I was in high school.
That's right, back in the early to mid 2010s, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was on iPhone using 3D models. It's no longer available, but I do remember spending a good chunk of time in it. But anyway, back to 90s consoles. While Mortal Kombat 3 didn't suffer too many cuts in its transition to 16-bit consoles, Ultimate was a much bigger game and had cuts made. But we did get compensation.
Now even though I'm playing the SNES version, I'm not playing this on my Super Nintendo.
That's right, we are going to be playing Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, the Ultimate Fighting game, on the Retron 3 HD. It's a 3-for-1 console you can get on Amazon that plays NES, Genesis, and SNES games, with both options of using video out and HDMI. Sweet! See, up to this point I've had to use a converter that also needs an outlet, which adds a whole bunch of wires to my office when capturing video game footage. With the Retron 3 HD, no need! It's a cool little device, very useful and cost efficient. Though sometimes you do have to jam the cartridges in there, which always leaves me scared I'm about to break them.
You'd think I'm doing an ad right now.
So Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, the Ultimate Fighting game, was set out to improve the problems with MK3 and fill out what was missing. Well, thankfully I still have my list right here, so let's see if it does. So we have the exact same menu layout with a different background. Could use some cooler stuff though. Wah. After pressing start, we are given more options. Wow, that's a first for Mortal Kombat.
These are just multiplayer options, but as I said earlier, I have no desire to play multiplayer with anyone, so I'm just gonna leave it as is.
Looking at the roster, holy shit, it's so much better! See, this looks like a proper follow-up to Mortal Kombat 2's roster. Instead of 14-ish, we now have 23. All the characters from Mortal Kombat 3 returned to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 except for Shiva, but that's only because of the limited storage space on the SNES cartridges, and she was one of the many cuts this game had.
But hey, remember what I said earlier?
Here, God, I can name 5 that they weren't here, I wouldn't complain. A lot of these characters aren't characters that had they been omitted in future games, no one would care, and you're lying if you say you do.
So I'm not complaining, especially considering us Super Nintendo owners got compensated for lack of Shiva with 2 extra characters.
Both the ninjas Rain and Noob Saibot. Now the Black Shadow Ninja Noob Saibot was a hidden fighter in Mortal Kombat 2 that was also supposed to be a hidden fighter in Mortal Kombat 3, but didn't make it due to cuts. So it's good that we finally get to see him, and he has his own moveset, which is the cheap nonsense we know him for. Rain, on the other hand, makes his debut here, the purple-clad water-based ninja that comes from Edenia, the same realm Katana comes from. He's always been one of those far background characters in the MK series, which is why I was really glad to see he start getting some more screen time in recent Mortal Kombat games. His moveset in the game wouldn't tell you he's water-based, as his special moves are lightning, sweet chin music, and mind control.
Don't kick me.
Anyway, for the rest of the roster, Smoke is no longer an unlockable fighter, you can just select them. But one cool thing about this game is that if before a fight, if you hold down a bunch of buttons at the start of a match, Smoke will revert back to a human with its own moveset that is literally just Scorpion's moveset, but hey, it's still legitness nonetheless. Kinda reminds me of Smash Bros. Brawl, where if you pick Samus and hold down certain buttons, you'll start the match as Zero Suit Samus. The returning characters we got are Katana, Melina, Reptile, and thank fucking God, Scorpion. I'm still shocked they made that initial decision to cut him. Jade, another secret fighter from Mortal Kombat 2, also makes her playable debut here. The Red Ninja Ermac finally officially appears after 2 games of speculation on whether or not he existed. And the last new character added was the original Sub-Zero, fully masked and looking like a ninja rather than an employee at Best Buy trying to sell me a fucking membership. This is the Sub-Zero from the first game who was killed by Scorpion, mysteriously reappearing. There is no real story to it, it's just a bonus. Plus, anyone who knows Mortal Kombat lore knows that the original Sub-Zero did get resurrected and became Noob Saibot, so the fact that we have the OG, the new G, and what the OG became in the same game is fun. Kinda like the Spider-Man meme or a bunch of different links being in Smash Ultimate. Okay, I'm gonna stop making comparisons to Smash Brothers. But anyway, the roster is so much better that this is the first problem solved. Sure, it is still missing Raiden and Johnny Cage, but those are more for story reasons, which I'm more easy to forgive. Raiden is using his power to protect the souls of Earthrealm warriors so that they can defeat Shao Kahn, which, okay, sure. He does still appear in Nightwolf's friendship though. And Johnny Cage isn't in the game because in canon, he is killed off. Now, I'm not sure if that decision was made because of the lawsuit nonsense, but it was bold.
I need some more fucking tea.
So we select our character and pick our tower with now 4 options instead of 3. We jump in and boy oh boy, I don't know if it's the newer fresher look at the game, but it looks so much crispier to me. The graphics could very well be the same from the previous title, but the fact that the stages here are a lot better just makes the game look better. No, UMK3 has 7 stages, which is less than MK3's 10, but this is probably another quality versus quantity argument as all the stages here are amazing and so vibrant. The desert, the Netherrealm, the portal, the dock, which has more color and is more appealing than the streets. From MK3, only 2 stages reappear. The rooftop and Shao Kahn's tower, which is exclusive to the final boss. I am slightly bummed that my favorite stages from MK3 didn't return, but honestly, it's fine. The game looks great! That's another problem solved. Oh, but what about the stage transitions? Well, only one stage featured that, and of course it has to be the best stage. Same issue as before, where any uppercut will send you to a worse looking stage, but I'll take this stage of Khan sitting in the background compared to a brick f***ing wall. I can get that at the menu. Though unfortunately it's slightly worse here because of the fact that the Netherrealm holds the only stage fatality in the game.
An issue here with the stage rotation. In Mortal Kombat 3, if you go from stage 1 to stage 2 mid-match, the next fight will start in stage 3, which made you go through the rotation faster, making the game feel like it had less stages than it actually did. But in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, if you go from the Netherrealm to the Throne Room in one match, the second match still starts you in the Throne Room, which is kinda lame having you fight in the same stage twice in a row.
So I'm gonna leave this. Also, the tournament does a wonderful job rotating the roster each playthrough, which is not a praise I thought I'd have to give today. But overall, the game's presentation already is so much better. It finally feels like a proper follow-up to MK2.
But let's get to the gameplay.
The gameplay in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is better, but hang on, that statement is overdosing on asterisks. Let's talk about the combos first, cause that problem easily transitions into the difficulty. When looking for Mortal Kombat 3's moves, I had a slightly difficult time finding combos, which left me in a state of being unable to do them. But with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, I did find them, and I even got to use some of them, and it worked! And the Retron 3 HD controller was very accurate with my input. Hell yeah, I can combo!
But before we chalk off my previous statements on Mortal Kombat 3 as it just being bad internet searching on my end, no. The problem wasn't that I couldn't do them. The problem was that my opponents would overdo them and throw a-hit combo after a-hit combo at me.
But here with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, the game wasn't as relentless, but it was still pretty f***ing hard. It is still a tough game to beat, and I can barely get past the third fight. But that was because the computer is too difficult, the same way it was in previous games, just turned up a notch.
I'm really sitting here justifying getting my ass kicked.
Well, it's time to bust out those old cheats again. The button combos are different and hilariously, one of the codes has you spell out baby. I love this tiny detail, makes you feel part of the fun. I always like seeing the credits and seeing how they refer to each other behind the scenes. Programmer dude, night creature, guys that were paid to play this game, it seemed like a fun office. But when utilizing the cheats to one buttons and blocking blocks, another flaw with the game started to show.
To give a visual idea, let's make a difficulty chart. Mortal Kombat 3 without cheats is tough, but with cheats it becomes easier, but it's still a challenge. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is much harder, but with cheats it becomes way too easy. The balance is thrown off.
So this is solved, but this isn't. Without cheats, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is a really tough game, but with them, it kinda becomes too easy. I'd find myself going on win streaks. That's never happened before, and I'd just be breezing through the game, beating it, and not really getting any satisfaction out of it. I guess while I'm talking about coasting through the game, I might as well mention the new thing on the tower. This E right underneath Motaro. I initially thought it meant E for everyone, meaning you'd fight an easy version of everyone on the roster, kinda like Mr. Game & Watch in Melee. Ah, damn it, I did it again. But no, E means endurance.
No! No! No!
The trauma from MK1 poured back in. You gotta beat 2 opponents?
I'm just being dramatic. I didn't mind the endurance matches in Mortal Kombat 1. My only thing was there didn't need to be 3 of them.
Here it's only 1, which is honestly pretty great. UMK3 is on such a mission to solve former games' problems that it even solved one of this game's problems. I didn't have too hard of a time with these, remember I'm cheating though, but I'm sure with this game's difficulty it would have otherwise been impossible. Are the bosses any different though? Motaro is. Considering that the brick stage isn't in the game, we now fight Motaro on the rooftop and it looks so much more epic to me. Also, Motaro is much faster, agile, and way more aggressive. His hitbox is much better, but his grab still remains ludicrously broken. But he's still a good fight. And the Shao Kahn fight is the exact same. Bullshit. I guess there's one last thing to talk about, and it's the finishers. So we once again have a bunch of finishers here. Fatalities, staged fatality, babalities, and friendships. Animalities aren't in the game, but instead they were replaced by the new kid on the block, the brutality. A finishing move where your opponent just relentlessly combos you until you explode. I don't like them. They are the same across every character, so it's boring after the first time. Plus, I feel like it's the game taunting me of all the combo abuse I've taken up to this point. But anyway, how are all the new fatalities in the game? Well, same problem as before, some of them look cheap, off-centered, or uninspired. OG Sub-Z had a rating system establishing finisher in the first game, so when they brought him back, they had to have him do it again, right? Right? Screen cuts to fucking black, and it's not because they were censoring it, it's because they just didn't want to animate it. One thing I did notice was changed was Scorpion's second fatality, where he teleported us to hell and an army of scorpions would fuck us up. That cuts to black, but it makes sense. I feel like the SNES wouldn't have been able to handle all the scorpions on screen. I know I can't. So they instead just had scorpions send you to hell where you'd burn to a crisp. And you know what, I've been playing a lot of Doom lately, so I'm in a hellish mood, I guess. It's a good substitution. The rest of them suck, honestly. I'm still not a fan of the cut corner approach to what is a staple to the series, but the fatalities really point out the big overall issue with Ultimate MK3, and that it's missing a lot of content. The announcer doesn't say the fighters' names, he even calls brutalities fatalities, characters are missing moves, and some of them are even missing finishers. If you do a friendship with OG Sub-Z, he kinda gets stuck and doesn't do anything, and friendship just pops up on screen. Noob Saibot and Rain don't have any finishers at all, and a lot of fighters are missing their babalities.
And I do understand it must have been a difficult task to fit this massive game onto this tiny cartridge, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But what I will happily rag on is the difficulty, which never left me satisfied.
But don't let that take anything away from Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. It is a huge improvement over MK3.
So Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is what everyone looks back to when it comes to the third Mortal Kombat. It felt more like it belonged.
Which is why when Midway released the classic arcade collection on 360 and PS3, it was Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 up there with 1 and 2. This is the official third game in the series. The OG MK3?
I just had an idea. My opinion of Mortal Kombat 3 was always negative because it was either a dull version that didn't feel like it belonged, or it was a game that was too hard for me to have any fun. But those were gimped SNES versions. I have the original arcade versions on my Xbox 360 now. I bought the arcade version when they announced that they were shutting down the store in June. This is my chance. If I experience Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 fully, maybe, just maybe, it can turn my opinion around on it.
Alright, move this over. The arcade version of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Looking at the roster, we got Shiva back, while Melina, Ermac, and OG Sub-Z are locked and need to be accessed via combat code. It should be no surprise the arcade version is definitive, as it looks amazing and the sound design is top notch. So many different sound effects and voices, I was impressed. Honestly, the whole arcade package and experiencing the full-on game really made me appreciate more how all the different porters did a phenomenal job with delivering the Mortal Kombat experience to our schlubs at home. Thank you, Sculpted, for your efforts on Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. And thank you, Williams, for the job you did on bringing the game to Super Nintendo. Maybe I can let bygones be bygones with all the cuts and shortcuts, but I still won't forgive the difficulty. Which, hey, is authentic, because I still can't do shit in this game. And without being able to use cheats like in consoles, I'm completely rendered to being a joke.
So I guess I know now that whether or not it's the classic arcade version or gimped console, I am bad at Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3.
Hang on, I got one more copy here. Ultimate Mortal Kombat on the DS. They forgot the fucking 3. Honestly, back in the day, I didn't know this existed. It's Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 ported onto the DS. It also comes with Puzzle Combat, which takes MK Deception character models and has them fight via this breed of Tetris 2 and Dr. Mario. But the main game itself? Yeah, it's Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 arcade version. This is awesome! And the best part is that the second screen on the DS showed us the special moves and finishers. What a great use of the second screen! You know what would have been cool? If when in the Netherrealm stage the screen is down here, but if you perform an uppercut it switches you to the top screen. That would have been fun!
Okay, I'm out of nice things to say.
The game's still hard, the CPUs are still malicious, and I have no cheats to use in single player, leaving me being abused. And while it's great that they show you the moves, they don't flip the arrows to be aligned with your fighter if you end up on the right side. Yeah, the game is still too hard for me to have any fun.
And that is Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Yep, my opinion hasn't changed after all these years. I admire Midway going out and making this version of MK3. Rather than just leave MK3 a disappointment and start their focus on a new game, they instead went back and fixed their errors. We can learn something from them. Some people weren't a fan of the aggressive offensive style the game adapted. Some were. I wasn't. It always bothered me the half effort they put into the fatalities. I never cared for the brutalities, and the difficulty just sucked any fun out of the game for me. Despite some mixed critical responses, the game again was still a commercial success. While not on par with the previous two installments, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is still a very respectable sequel. But believe it or not, there was still one updated version released.
In the fall of 1996, a year after Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, we got Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Now, I was always under the misconception that Mortal Kombat Trilogy was going to be something like what Mortal Kombat Arcade was on the 360, or Super Mario All-Stars. Just a screen with 3 options of which Mortal Kombat you wanted to play and it'll just emulate the game. You expect that with a game called Mortal Kombat Trilogy, right? But no, it's actually considered another update to Mortal Kombat 3 that integrates elements from Mortal Kombat 1 and 2.
Mortal Kombat Trilogy never made it to arcades. It was direct to console, a first for the series. It initially hit Sega Saturn in August of '97, then later in the month made its way to DOS and Windows. Then in October it hit the PlayStation 1, with the Nintendo 64 getting its version in November.
The 64 was the weakest console of its generation due to the fact that it was still using cartridges while everyone else was all about CDs, which can hold a whole bunch more data. So once again, I do believe we are playing the likely worst version.
Went great last time. This is my first time playing this, so I don't know what to expect. Let's hope for the best.
So the first thing we get is the story thus far, some text scrolling letting us know the events of the previous Mortal Kombats. We then get a fun intro showing gameplay, though it looks bad to me. The way everything freezes before the transitions just looks clunky.
And I, someone who's been doing video editing for a while, feel like I have an opinion when it comes to giving proper transition.
Maybe it might be a limitations thing, but I don't know, I feel like just doing a zoom would have made it more dramatic. We start the game and we now have 4 options here compared to the previous title's 3. 3-on-3 combat, oh that sounds fun, but it's a multiplayer only mode, which is lame. Considering this game has endurance matches, I don't think programming single player 3-on-3 is too far-fetched. The N64 was a party console, which makes sense for these modes, and the 3-on-3 is exclusive to the 64. Suck it, Sony! Also, the options menu is kinda weird, kinda gives a Mario Party vibe.
Weird comparison, but anyway, the Nintendo 64 controller has always been a punching bag within the gaming community. The odd shape, the weird button layout has always been a point of attack that people throw at it. But I'm one of those people that defends it hard to this day.
For a lot of games, it works amazingly, but here, I must admit, using the N64 controller blows. These 2 buttons are the punching, these 2 buttons are the kicking, and these 2 buttons are also the block and run buttons. We also have them up here, but rotated, which is kinda annoying. The layout is very odd. Having the block and run buttons separating the attack buttons is a messy situation. But to MK Trilogy's credit, we can map our buttons. And it became better, but still, using the tiny D-pad for attacks was tough. Looking at the roster, we have 26 characters at our disposal. Noob Saibot, Rain, and Shiva are all here along with every other character from Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. But finally rejoining the fold are Raiden, again with a Y, Johnny Cage, and Baraka. Now someone who is missing is Maskless Sub-Zero, but we do have the OG Sub-Z here, so we do still have our Ice Ninja in some capacity. But damn it, what if I wanted to play as a lifeguard? We also have these two blank slots here. You'll notice how in MK3 the blank slot was a secret fighter, but in Ultimate MK3 it was nothing actually, just a blank space. Well, this combines that, as one slot is a secret fighter and one slot is useless. The secret fighter here is Chameleon, a grey female ninja that when you play as her, she's transparent and becomes really hard to see. Her moveset changes every few seconds because when you use her, you'll notice her name on your health bar keeps changing color. What that is that depending on what color the name is, she will be emulating the moveset of either Kitana, Jade, or Melina. Now while fitting for the term chameleon, it's not great to play with. The constantly changing movesets put you in situations where, say it's blue and you try to use a Kitana special move, but in the process it changes character and you end up doing nothing and you get beaten down for it. Plus the transparency aspect is unnecessary and annoying. To get Chameleon, by the way, we have to rapidly enter a button combo the story scrolling until Shao Kahn says her name. The other secret fighter, I guess, is Human Smoke. I looked up pictures of complete select screens and see the other slot be Human Smoke. To get him, it's the same way as in previous games where you gotta select Robo Smoke and do a button combo before the match and poof. But then he doesn't pop up in the menu afterwards. It's weird. We pick our characters, select our tower, and it's time to do the same thing again. So Mortal Kombat Trilogy brings a lot of stages from the previous games, but it doesn't just lazily put backgrounds in. No, the game actually puts an effort to adjust and update the graphics to make it look like it belongs, with slight changes like Shao Kahn sitting in the courtyard instead of Shang Tsung. Not every stage returns from the previous games, but still there is enough here to keep us happy and nostalgic while keeping the game interesting visually. One small detail that I greatly appreciate is that if you remember in the first Mortal Kombat, the pit fatality was the first stage fatality in the series and it didn't need a button combo, but instead it was just a simple uppercut. Well, here the first pit stage is brought back, and the stage fatality simply needs an uppercut, which is a love-filled detail that hit me in the nostalgia bone.
Oh, I love it.
Also, to past stages, they added some transitions, which is another one of those personal touches I think is great. Like an uppercut in Goro's lair from MK1 will send you into the armory from MK2. That's adorable. And plus, the transitions look much smoother. I know I complained about the transitional stages before, but that was due to the fact that the game would take you to a worse looking stage than a dry well of good stages.
Here though, there's so many good stages that when it takes me out of it, I don't mind as much, cause there's so many great stages in the game, it just hurries me through the process.
This problem is finally solved. Now actually playing the game, oh my god, I can't believe my eyes and hands. Am I actually having a good f***ing time playing this game? The difficulty, oh good god, the difficulty, it's not bullshit. I set the game to very easy and it seems like for the first time in forever, it actually did do something. I'm having fun competitive matches against the CPUs that even if I lose, I can honestly say to the CPU,
Nah, you got me.
rather than,
Fuck you, that's so fucking cheap.
playing through most of the tournament was genuinely a good time. It was at least until I reached the fight under the endurance fight, and my opponent was definitely upping the ante while still not feeling like BS, but still in the realm of Ultimate MK3's gameplay. But once I got to the endurance match, it all fell apart. The relentless endless combos from regular MK3 had returned, and I could never get past it. And speaking of regression, the game once again sucks with rotating the near 30 characters with each playthrough, meaning I'm always fighting the same tournament. God damn it, you started off so well, what happened? Yeah, I can't beat Mortal Kombat Trilogy. I did find a way to activate cheats online, but I can't seem to do it, so I'm on my own. But I don't want to sound ungrateful for what MK Trilogy did. For the first time with Mortal Kombat 3, I had fun, I enjoyed playing the game. With the other versions, I would enjoy myself for maybe one fight before the rest of the game's nonsense would start to ruin it for me. But here, I managed to get through a bunch of fights having a good time, and it's not because I was winning, but because the game didn't feel like it was being annoying.
And though I can't reach Motaro and Shao Kahn, doesn't mean I can't play as them.
That's right, with a secret method you can play as both of them. You were able to do it in MK3 and UMK3, but that was only in multiplayer. Here though, you can use them in single player, and god, using some of these moves felt therapeutic. Sadly though, it's only for the first fight because with the next fight, even if you hold down the necessary buttons, you won't turn into them. But still, the excitement of using the characters in the first place and performing fatality with them was awesome.
Alright, let's see if the game solves the last problem on the list. So as I said a little earlier, the last two games did such a good job spoiling me with the cheats that I don't know how to perform fatalities. Take this as a life lesson. If you start taking shortcuts on things that you're good at, it might make you worse at them. Now I could learn how to do the fatalities, but I'm feeling a little lazy. So I'm just gonna cheat one last time.
Well, largely it's the same issue. We got new ones for some of the characters, but again, they all look so cheap to me and barely look like any thought went into them. I don't like how a lot of these look. I guess that's the one constant with the third installment of Mortal Kombat. Some whack-ass finishers. The friendships remain the best though.
Honestly, I think that's all I have to say about Mortal Kombat Trilogy on Nintendo 64. I think it's pretty good. It's definitely the best iteration of Mortal Kombat 3 I've played so far.
The roster is complete, the amount of stages is incredible, the gameplay is the most fun here than in any other version, without cheats even. It's also got some great offerings in multiplayer and fun secrets to discover.
I think Mortal Kombat Trilogy is great, and while I don't ever see myself coming back to Mortal Kombat 3, if I did, it would definitely be this one. Now I was gonna wrap it up here, but when I was looking for that complete roster earlier, I saw an even bigger one that included boss characters in the PlayStation 1 version. And I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Fuck it, one more go. Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the PlayStation 1. It starts off with a rotating MK Dragon medallion and then title screen. No awkwardly edited video. We also get a much different version of the story thus far. Instead of recapping the events of the first two games, the PS1 version just talks about the initial formation of the Mortal Kombat tournament. Here's the main menu with options getting its own slot instead of being a weird button combo needed like it was with the 64. Once inside the options, it's a whole lot more organized with many more options including limiting Shang Tsung's morph ability. This is done due to complaints about Shang Tsung's lag when he morphs into other characters, and rather than take out his morph ability, they just made it an option to limit, which is a good call.
Oh wow, Soblev, you're really doing a deep dive into the options. How exciting. I'm getting to it, man!
The reason why I'm in the options is because cheats are back, baby! Yes, with a much clearer and easier method, we can now have a cheat menu that has less options but has the most important option, the one button finishers, baby! Hell yeah, I can finally do these!
So I'm just gonna cheat one last time. Get a load of that guy.
Anyway, let's look at the roster and oh, it is so much bigger! So not only does Apple employee Sub-Zero pop back into the game, Human Smoke finally gets his own slot without needing to be unlocked, and the boss characters have become playable down here. Goro, Kintaro, Motaro, and Shao Kahn are here and all playable without needing cheats. Holy shit, this is awesome! And this isn't the case in the game when you play as a boss, they aren't as broken as they were when you had to fight them. Oh no, they are still broken and you feel the power of being one of these motherfuckers that spent the last 4 years bringing on emotional damage. There was an option in the cheats to nerf them, but why the f would you do that? That's the equivalent of asking a teacher if they forgot to give you any homework. It's awesome using the bosses, though they are slower and clunkier. It's the price you pay for playing as these giant pieces of ham. Oh, and when it's boss versus boss, it feels like Godzilla vs. Kong. One other thing with the character select here on the PS1 version is that if you highlight certain older characters and press select, you can use their older version, meaning Jax from MK2 or Kano from MK1. That's pretty sick, but I also wonder how this is possible with all the lawsuit nonsense. And hey, this is technically the first instance of Mortal Kombat having different costumes for its combatants. Thing is, it was always interesting to me how they would incorporate older models and give them updated movesets. Well, they somehow made it work. From my understanding, not all finishers are possible to perform on them, which I guess makes sense, but they can all perform brutalities, because of course they can, it's a lame finisher. But when it comes to combos, MK1 Kano became my main in this game because he can have a run combo that goes up to 4 hits and it's just spamming the high punch button. I love it! I feel included! Now something I forgot to mention while talking about this game on a Nintendo 64 was the new gameplay mechanic, which is this aggressor bar down here. It fills up as the fight progresses, and if it maxes out, the character gets the drunk effect and becomes faster and dishes out more damage. But you see, I forgot to mention it because it really isn't too much of a factor in matches sometimes. It fills up as the round goes but completely resets at the start of a new round, and sometimes it takes its damn sweet time filling up. and when someone does get aggressive, it only lasts the length of a WarioWare micro game.
I'm not gonna call it pointless because when it does come into play, those few seconds of, oh shit, I gotta get away, or oh shit, I gotta press him, do add a little bit.
You know, talking about the same game across different consoles gives me the itch to compare them. Well, let's do it. So weirdly, despite the PS1 being a much more powerful console than the 64, it's kinda lacking in a good number of departments. Visually, the game looks blurrier compared to how crispy it looked on the 64, and the audio sounds more muffled and muted. The loving touch of transition between older stages isn't here, and the gameplay just feels slower. Plus loading times, Jesus. You know, despite the lack of space there were in cartridges, the one thing that N64 had was the fact that there were rarely any loading times, which is damn impressive with the large size of games the system had. Meanwhile, on the PS1, there would be instances where the loading time would be taking so long, I think the game just froze. And you know what? Sometimes it did!
So the PS1 version is definitely a bit sus when it comes to its performance. Sometimes it would just straight up crash on me. But despite the questionable performance, this channel mostly cares about gameplay.
And by God, Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the PlayStation 1 really fucking did it. It actually fucking did it. It made me have a lot of fun playing the third Mortal Kombat to the point that I see myself coming back to it. The difficulty is gone. Don't get me wrong, the game is a challenge, but it's no longer that too fast, too aggressive game I've been experiencing for the last 50 goddamn minutes. It's completely doable. And it might have something to do with the performance of the game once again, feeling slower at times and not as fluid as the 64 version, but that actually benefits the PlayStation version. Plus, there is no limited continues. You can keep going until you give up. Oh my god, so not only can I play the game, perform combos, and have my one-button fatalities, but I'm also enjoying myself all the way through the game and finally authentically beating Shao Kahn. The game did it! It solved the difficulty issue! When you do beat him, you are given a chance to choose what you want your reward to be. The first time I beat the game, I chose the second option, which ended up being a secret fight against Chameleon. Oh no, but this isn't the same Chameleon. It's a new Chameleon, but this is based off the male ninja characters. So the N64 you get a female and the PlayStation you get a male. Okay. Again, I personally don't care for Chameleon. They were always a throwaway character that seemed to just get randomly made and not really brought up anymore.
Okay, in all fairness, I wrote this script before playing Mortal Kombat 1.
Mortal Kombat Trilogy on PS1 is pretty great. When I beat the game, I was so excited to play as a different character and try to beat it again and see the other prizes. Something I haven't felt up to this point this whole video. The second time I beat it, I was excited to get that other reward, but the game froze, leaving me staring at a black screen for 5 minutes.
But still, with that said, Mortal Kombat Trilogy did something I didn't think was possible, and that was making me like the third Mortal Kombat.
The roster is amazing, the stages are all here, the combat is fun, the fatalities took a slip here, but oh well, it's still a good time. I really like this game.
I like it so much that I'm finding a new perspective. Considering that I bitched about the whack-ass cut corner finishers this game has, I have to remember, I'm also cutting corners by using cheats to do the fatalities. So, it, two lazy actions cancel each other out. And that's the list resolved. All the problems I've had with Mortal Kombat 3 have all been fixed.
Don't get me wrong, of all the older Mortal Kombats, I'm still gonna look at 1 and 2 mostly.
But if I do look at the third, it's only gonna be Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the PlayStation 1.
So after playing all these versions across all these consoles, I can comfortably say Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the PlayStation 1 is the definitive third Mortal Kombat.
Is it over? Are we done? No more versions of Mortal Kombat 3 lying around? Thank God. Well, there we have it. Mortal Kombat 3 / Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 / Mortal Kombat Trilogy has always been one of the more polarizing in the series. I've noticed online people either praising the games and calling them one of the best installments in the series, and others are a lot more critical, falling in line with a lot of stuff that I've said. While also throwing in there that the Mortal Kombat games at this point have been feeling a bit repetitive. I definitely think the game stumbled a bunch and definitely did not match the standard set by the previous two titles. But the fact that there's so many versions of the game, I'm sure people can still find a version of Mortal Kombat 3 that checks all their boxes. I know I found mine.
But anyway, we have reached the end of the original Mortal Kombat Trilogy of games, and what a time it was. Mortal Kombat truly was king during this era between 1992 and 1996. They ruled the arcade fighting scene and were a massive success critically and commercially. Not only with the games, during this time period, Mortal Kombat truly became a multimedia phenomenon. Some can look back at this era as being the golden age of Mortal Kombat.
But unfortunately, with every prosperous good times follows darkness and a period of bad. Because little did we know, we were about to enter the Dark Ages. But that'll have to wait. Because after playing Mortal Kombat 3 for the last pissing 50 fucking minutes, I need a break from Mortal Kombat. And what perfect timing! I have another online date to head off to. Hopefully it goes better than the last one. So you're saying you come with Doom 3? Oh, hell yeah! Where's my fucking kidney?